I said earlier, Tuesdays used to be sort of no real identity to Tuesdays. It's not hump day or anything. But nowadays, we have Rich Reynolds in, our US correspondent, and he's here this week as well. Good afternoon.
Yeah, man. Good afternoon.
Welcome back in. Now, the thing is...
so happy to be here.
I'm usually here. I'm sort of filming you and Cal, having your chat.
Yeah,
but,
being the producer.
The way it's worked out this time around is that I'm sitting here presenting the show and I'm making out like I know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, you'll be great. Cal fakes his way through it.
Yes, well, that's one of the skills you learn along the way is to make it sound like you know what you're talking about, even if it's just the basic facts. But you very helpfully this morning sent us a big list of things, and it's not all the political stuff as well. It's some stories from around the world. But because there are big holes in my US political knowledge. I remember that they really had it in for that Spiro Agnew guy back in the day. But and I've heard of
that's a way back.
One or two since. But we'll be able to touch on.
You know what? The holes in what you know is equal to or a lot less than the holes of regarding me. And if I had to answer questions about Parliament and procedure and that sort of thing, and I wouldn't, I don't even understand why your judges wear those wigs. I haven't gotten into that. I still think that ought to be abandoned, but I know that's sacrilege. So
it's obviously tradition that they've hung on to, but also I think there's a sense of that's very formal and kind of not awe-inspiring, but it's kind of in. What's the word I'm after? If a criminal's there, it looks very serious. This is up against the judge.
Intimidating.
Intimidating is the right answer, yeah. So they keep it on. And then you see some of the courts around the world, which are brand new buildings. It just looks like, that's a court?
Yeah, that's true.
That's not what I'm used to.
That's true. The UK, they give good court.
Yes, quite.
It's very intimidating the way it's laid out, and you've got your defendant over here, and the judge sitting up a lot higher. It's very, very intimidating. Mm-hmm. So.
Okay. Well, we'll get into some bits because today, or later on tonight, it is the presidential debate, right?
Big doings. Big doings. That's all that American media is talking about today, and actually yesterday and the day before and the day before that. I mean, it doesn't matter whether you lean to the left or lean to the right. That's all everybody's talking about. Who's got the advantage? Whether it's Vice President Harris or Donald Trump. It's going to be. I don't know if it's going to be a free for all, but it is going to be very spirited and very potentially nasty. Tonight at 3 a.m. Spanish time.
Yes, that's the way it works out. 3 a.m. Madrid time. Yeah,
but you can all pick it up watch it on YouTube the way a lot of people do, and that's generally what I'm going to be doing when I get up tomorrow morning.
Yes, and I mean this sort of stuff that you sent me a load of stuff over this morning because you love it. Political
I do.
Junkie.
I do. I'm a political junkie. There's no question. I've worked in news most of my life and have really, really enjoyed it. And I like all the discussion, but I realize it's all kind of tilted one way or another, and you can interpret it no matter how you want. And I know that's what I do, but I like a nice, fierce discussion. I like it when people answer the question. When somebody says, did you do this, and they don't try to avoid it and say, no, I didn't. That's when the discussion gets good. Is when things are real and things are very, very much on point and spirited. And I think that's what we're going to see tonight.
Yeah, so. I don't enjoy those debates at all, especially when there's more than two, because it's just they're talking over each other, shouting over each other. It needs a good moderator in there. It's on ABC, right?
It's on ABC tonight, right? But all the networks, CBS, CNN, and Fox, and NBC, they're all going to be carrying it. So it's just that ABC gets kind of the credit because it's their two moderators. But you're right about the one thing. It can become kind of overwhelming. I remember when they were 4 years ago, the Republicans, this is when, that was 8 years ago when Trump was first running, there were 18 candidates, and they had like 14 on stage, and each person got to answer one question. Yeah. And it was kind of crazy, and they say, well, who had the advantage, who had the disadvantage? And, it was one of these things where if you were placed on the far end of your dais was on, as far away from the center as you could get, you didn't get to answer anything, and a lot of those people never went farther than that debate.
But also, if it's coming down to just the two of them on this later on tonight, do you think they change anybody's minds?
Yeah, I think they will.
You do?
I do. I believe that. I believe about 40%, maybe 45% of the people, they're voting Democratic. They're voting for Kamala Harris.
Yeah, I would thought
the other
more.
45 are going to vote for Donald Trump. They like the cut of his jib. Mm-hmm. They like the fact that he he's energetic and he's verbose and they say he tells it like it is, and in effect he kind of makes a lot of stuff up, which is a bit of a problem. But I think you got about 10-20% of the people who are out there, and they've made their mind up, but they're easily dissuaded. They may like Trump, but they don't love him. And if Kamala Harris comes out looking pretty good, they could be pushed to the side one way or another, and vice versa. So yeah, I think you got about 20% of the people, which could be 30-40 million people, could be in play tonight.
Right. Well, yeah, because there are key swing states, of course.
Yeah.
5 or 6 of those. The main ones they're focusing on.
I don't know if a lot of the people who are not Americans don't understand what swing states are. And in short, a swing state is a state that depending on the person, depending on the election, that can go either way. Sometimes they're called purple states. The red-blue thing, by the way, we only started to be using about the year 2000. The guy at NBC coined the use of red state, blue state, and after that it became purple state. There are, I came here from Oregon, which is a very blue state. California is very blue. The whole West Coast, very liberal, very blue. The East Coast of the U.S., Northeast is specifically very blue. But that middle of the country, red, 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 it's very conservative. And then you got places like Michigan and Pennsylvania, which can go either way. And those are the states, those poor people there. You got 2 candidates who are stumping in those 6 or 7 states for the next 2 months.
Isn't Georgia in play as well?
Georgia's in play, North Carolina, Nevada, and also Wisconsin, of course.
On the list,
yeah.
I think I know why they started the red and blue thing as well, because it's completely the opposite of how it is in the UK. And because the Americans have to do that, they got the date and the month the wrong way around, the day and the month.
How you do that
differently.
I heard that. I was watching a newscast one time, and they said red and blue. And
yeah, because the Reds are the left-wing, the socialist side. Blue's conservative.
That makes sense.
Yeah, completely the opposite.
I can't tell you why, because the guy that came up with the idea in the States, a guy named Tim Russert, who sadly isn't with us anymore, and he had a whiteboard and he had a red marker and a blue marker, and he just started fiddling with them and said, "This is how I see it." And he would hold it up to camera. It was very low tech, but it was very indicative. And this is the year that George Bush beat Al Gore in the year 2000. So that's where that all comes from.
So they're not long associated colours with each party?
No, only the past couple of years. But I have no doubt that the UK invented this, and we stole it.
Yeah, it was the red, keep the red flag flying. It's Labour's anthem.
Oh yeah. That makes sense.
Mm-hmm. So just some other bits on the list. I mean, you sent me a thing about the wildfires. So that's kind of an ongoing thing, isn't it, around LA? Yeah,
the summertime is a bad time, especially if you live out west. The American South gets a lot of rain for some reason, and hurricanes. Like I didn't bring it up here, and I didn't send it to you, but there's a hurricane that's heading into Texas right now and into Louisiana. So they're getting a lot of rain. They're getting flooding and very high winds in the south. But the West Coast is just baking right now, and the temperatures are like 43 degrees Celsius, about 100, 110 degrees Fahrenheit, and there's no let up. They can't get ahead of these fires fast enough, and they're wildfires, meaning they're not started by people with matches or anything like that. They start by way of heating up brushes and not getting rain for a long time. A lot of these places in California, they don't get rain for 9 or 10 months.
No, we're kind of used to it here. We had
very much like Spain.
It wasn't with you. It was we had some of the volunteer firefighters from just up the road here in, and it was interesting because he said it can be started by like a glass bottle, which acts as a magnifying glass. So once the sun gets on it. Mm-hmm. That'll get hot enough, and it'll set the brush on fire.
Very much.
It's really dry ground there.
But you're right. The American West is getting hit. Reno, Nevada's got it, and they've got a bad fire in Los Angeles. But
it's the way it's going, isn't it? Because I've seen Mark Maron, who I'm a big fan of, do a bit about. It's become a season now. That was fire season begun already. Or is it?
Fire season's got, and it should be over by October. It starts to cool off. You think of Los Angeles, you think it's hot all the time. It isn't.
They did have some rain. They did quite a bit of rain not that long ago.
About a year ago, they hadn't had rain to speak of in about 10 years. No. Can you imagine that 10 years without rain? And all of a sudden they got it in about a month or 2 months, and now their reservoirs are all filled up and they're in good shape. But you're right, the fires just come, and brush fire season used to be like, oh, it's August. We need to be kind of careful. Now it's like May, June, July, August, all the way into October.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Yeah, and of course there's some big old properties around there. So I think and once it reaches national forests as well, it's that could be it for them, unfortunately.
Yep. Very
Sadly as well sometimes.
Well, there are a lot of people who have houses there, and I would hesitate to buy a house in areas like that. I think that you're running a great risk. It doesn't matter whether it's 10 years ago or this year, and a lot of these people have lost their homes. There's a town there in California called Paradise, and about 3 years ago, the whole town was wiped out. Everybody lost their house, and a lot of people, they moved back. They built houses again. It's happening to them again. They're all in that fire zone. I'm thinking, what are you doing here? Why would she move in a fire zone? It's like my house may have been wiped out by a flood, and people move back and they build a house in a floodplain.
Yeah,
what don't you get about
think it
this?
through. I mean, I'm used to it because I'm very familiar with Canada, and it's
yes,
obviously there are big areas there, but some of it is a natural renewing of the ground. It's like a cyclical thing. So they do have very fires naturally, and then it grows back. It just clear areas.
It does. It does grow back. Except for the houses. I mean, you don't have to feel too badly about all these forests because they do grow back, and like a year later, all of a sudden there's new growth and it all works out. And Canada is starting to really heat up much more than it has in the past, and they are very susceptible to wildfires up there, especially places like Calgary and Edmonton and up in the
And that's a vast
Central
area as well across Canada, of course, of wilderness, a lot of it.
And British Columbia and BC.
Yes, of course. But, I mean, from some of the stories you've sent me, it said it's not all, although you could argue it is political, but another school shooting, unfortunately. But let's start with the one on the roadside there. What was that guy?
Well,
that was around Kentucky.
What happened was a couple of days ago, there was a guy on I-75, which is the interstate, the motorway, one of many in the country. It goes between Detroit and Miami, so it kind of goes through like the heartland. And at this point in Kentucky, near the state capital of Frankfort, a guy had an AR-15, a high-powered rifle, sitting in the bushes on the side of the road, just shooting at cars. He didn't kill anybody. Luckily, he injured somebody, hit somebody in the face. But I think the latest count is there were 7 people injured. Really a dangerous situation. This is the same thing happened about 10, 20 years ago. I think it was in D.C., where they eventually caught the guy. But this guy, he drove his own car, and then he left his car, so he took off on foot. Now, he's still at large. He's still somewhere in the Kentucky area, I would assume. Everybody is out looking for this guy, but he left his car, left the bullets, left the gun, dropped everything, and kind of took off. This is right on the back end of the school shooting in Georgia, where 2 kids, 2 14-year-olds, and 2 teachers were killed, and it's that nonsense continues in the States, and it's insane. It's truly insane. All these, that your child is going to school and never comes back because he's been killed by a classmate.
But the thing is, it becomes like, another school shooting. It's almost not like front page news anymore. It would be locally, but
it's not. You're absolutely right. And in this particular case, the child's father had, and the kid doing the shooting is 14. They're going to try him as an adult, and I don't know how I feel about that. He is, at the end of the day, he was a very troubled and depressed 14-year-old, and I think anybody listening out there who was ever 14 knows what that was like. It's not exactly a fun age to go through for any of us. But his father had given him the gun for Christmas.
Oh, boy, yeah.
So he gave him a high-powered rifle for Christmas. And so it was illegal. It's illegal to buy a gun at 14 in most states. I believe in all states. I can't be quoted on that, but I believe in all states it's illegal to buy a gun that young, but it's not illegal for you to shoot a gun. So if your father gives you the gun, that's okay. You just can't buy one. In this particular case, the kid's mother called the school, and grandmother called the school and said, he's on the way. We've seen some stuff that's really leading us to believe he's going to try something different, and he did. And he started to shoot up this classroom.
Wow. Yeah, I mean, sure. I mean, this obviously. I guess this leads us into the gun debate and how outsiders see. You must know how anyone outside of the US can look at it and think it's just insane.
It is insane.
It's kind of you maybe grow up with it, and a lot of Americans do. Not everyone obviously is in favour of it, but we can't even imagine being able to just. I can sort of see the argument for having a little handgun in the house. I don't know, depending where depending on the area, but to be able to go in and buy, whether it's a cool-off period or not, semi-automatic AR-15.
You could buy a bazooka.
Yeah,
you could buy a hand grenade. You could buy a landmine.
Yeah.
They're for sale, and most states have a cooling off period where you go in and you buy the gun, whatever kind of gun it is, even if it's a pistol, and you have to wait a couple of days before you can pick it out. So I think that's kind of smart. But most states do not have background checks. Most states you can be under 21 to buy a gun. I don't think 13, 14-year-old kids ought to be walking around with high-powered rifles. That's just my feeling.
No, and the amount of school shootings that have come up where it's been a fellow student, they've got it from home. It was probably the fathers, as you say.
But looking at the statistics on this, recent statistics, 80% of the people who have guns really say they like having guns. They like shooting guns. They like guns in general. And, it's in our Constitution. It's the Second Amendment. And whenever somebody says, well, we need to dial back who can get them, and people who like guns will hold up their hands and say, now, wait a minute. It's in the Constitution. We can't dwell it. What's in the Constitution is called the right to bear arms because we had a militia, to fend back. I can't remember who we were fighting in 1776. But
how else are you going to keep the King of England's armies off your front lawn? Yeah, quite. It would have been George III and the red.
But there are a lot of people just flat out like guns, and I get that. I myself, I've never owned a gun, so I have a slightly different attitude. I did work at my last job when I was back in Oregon. I worked with a bunch of guys, and more than half of them own guns. And they would talk all the time about going shooting on the weekend. And a lot of them went hunting. They'd go, because there were a lot of hunters where I lived, and they would go out and shoot small game. They would shoot pheasant and even raccoons and deer and that sort of thing. Deer season is in the fall. And I used to ask that question, why do you own guns? And he'd go, because they were really proud. He'd say, I bought 3 new guns this week. And this guy could barely feed his family, but he was out buying guns. He goes, I like shooting guns, and, it's my right. And I said, you're not worried about all these kids that are being killed. Well, it's my right to do this, and I like that. And he says, well, what about protection? He goes, I said, what about protection? He goes, well, somebody's going to break into your house. I said, by the way, has anybody ever broken into your house? He said, no.
But nobody outside the military needs an AR-15 in their home.
They don't.
And the thing is, the argument is, well, if you ban guns, criminals will still be able to get hold of them. Yes, criminals might, but these 14-year-olds, they're not hardened criminals. They don't know people in the street. They haven't got underworld contacts. They just wouldn't be able to get hold of them.
No, that's very true. You take a place like New York, and people who visit New York think it's unsafe. And in fact, New York is one of the safest cities in the world, because there are a lot of cops. It has very strict gun laws. People are not running around New York carrying guns on the street. They are not. One time I was in Texas visiting a friend. I'm walking through a grocery store, and a guy had a rifle.
Yeah,
he was carrying a rifle in the butter section. I go, what are we doing? And I really did a double take. I walked by and go, oh, my God. It was just crazy. I wasn't expecting to see anything like that. No. But very acceptable in parts of Texas. And
I guess the vast majority don't harm anyone.
No.
Any humans, but they can get into the wrong hands, as we know.
No, that's very true. I mean, I have to be really clear about that. The people that I know who own guns, and there are a lot of people I know who own guns, they're very responsible. A lot of them keep them in their nightstand, or they keep them locked up, or they keep them in the top of their closet away from their kids, and they're very, very responsible human beings. Matter of fact, most of the people I know who are responsible, I've never, ever had a conversation about guns. I've never said, hey, do you own a gun? It just doesn't come up in conversation. But I guess if it did, a lot of them would. And I'd say, I'm kind of surprised because you're like a really responsible guy. And it is mostly men who have them statistically.
Yes. And I think we were talking about it during the song there. If we're being honest, a lot of men particularly do like the idea of firing a gun. It's the way, but in a controlled condition. You go to a range or you do something.
Like you fired a
I did some
skeet shooting.
Clay pigeon shooting, skeet shooting, yeah. I was actually really good at it. I think I'm good at darts. I've got a good aim for some reason. But that was great. And that was on, controlled thing. You're in the field.
Just for fun.
With the protection around. They show you how to hold it and not point it at people, even when it's empty. But things can get into the wrong hands, as we know.
I know, and there are a lot of people who are not responsible, but taking high-powered weapons and giving them to your kids, I don't know about that. That's
when you bought him it for Christmas, it's just you can't. As I say, outside looking in, you just can't comprehend. But perhaps people within the States can't even imagine it as well.
I know. It's just for us, it's kind of embroiled in the culture. I don't remember when I was a child ever hearing about anybody getting shot. That didn't happen in the 60s, 70s, even in the 80s, and it's become a problem as the guns have become more powerful, and there are more. Everybody knows that there are more guns in the U.S. than there are people. Right. There are like 300-400 million guns out there right now, and you never know who's packing. And to the point where if you're on a interstate or a motorway or something, and you have a problem with somebody, you don't get out of your car, and you know that the guy in that car next to you who's cut you off. He's probably packing.
Probably.
There's a good chance he's going to point a gun at you. And I've never had a gun pointed at me, so I don't really know. But I would be scared out of my mind in case somebody did that. So it wouldn't make me go out there and buy a gun to counter that. I'm just, I'm not afraid in that way.
No, and I remember. I think it was reaction was it Donald Trump talked about arming teachers.
He did.
Yeah.
He did with a straight face. Let's arm teachers. That's a good idea.
Yeah.
And there are states in the country who have done that.
But you can't expect teachers. That's not what they signed up for.
No.
And if they had to shoot somebody, that's in their head for the rest of their lives then.
That's right.
And it's...
That's right. And who are you going to shoot? And how do you know if the kid comes in, unless he's carrying a gun, how do you know that kid is the one who is shooting anybody? Go ahead, shoot the child. That's a great idea.
Yeah, and if you miss, Plus, teachers obviously do a great job at teaching, but I think I knew one in my whole time going through any school that would have been capable of pulling a gun on someone, and he was ex-military. They're just generally not built like that, teachers. But and why should they be? It's not...
no, you're right. That's it. You put it the right way. That's not what they signed up for. Teachers have enough to do right now, and they...
Right. I figured after everything we've been talking about, it's one of those tunes that just cheers everybody up. Some Turtles, happy together. Turtles, seen live by Rich Reynolds, our US correspondent.
I did see them live. They were excellent.
This was Flo and Eddie, Howard Kalin and Volman, right? It was much later on, supporting Fleetwood Mac. So this was Lindsey
back in the 70s, late 70s, early 80s, something like that.
Oh, so it was Lindsey Buckingham and Fleetwood Mac with Stephen Nicks. Oh, wow.
Yeah, and both bands were great, but the Turtles were particularly great. That dates me a little bit.
No, they're great pop tunes. I mean, that's 67, that one. So they'd been doing it for a while. They were in Frank Zappa's band, of course, those two.
I don't think I knew that.
Oh, yeah.
They were in the Mothers of Invention?
Yeah, Flo and Eddie, yeah.
Huh.
Yeah, and then
I should have known that.
This is my job full time. You're doing your job full time, which is to keep an eye on everything that's going on. Ahead of the presidential candidate debate tonight. Then, so I don't know what time it is in all the different time zones in the US, but as I say, 3 o'clock Madrid time.
9 p.m. in Philadelphia, and 3 p.m. Madrid time. Big doings. It's probably going to be the only debate these two ever have. It turns out they have never met.
Oh.
They have never been on the same stage together. They've never even said hello.
I suppose not.
Because he debated Joe Biden last time. Yeah. She was vice president when they ran, and she ran against a guy named Mike Pence, a lot of people know. And, she debated him, but she's never debated Trump. She's very analytical. She's a former prosecutor, as everybody knows, and she's incredibly sharp, and he's kind of... he's very Trumpy. He's all over the
Donald Trump is very Donald Trump, yeah.
He really is. And we're going to come down to whether or not she can light him up, because that's going to be the big thing.
Because it just changed overnight, didn't it? He thought he got it all sewn up, Donald Trump.
He did have it all sewn up.
What he did when it was still Joe Biden, then suddenly, every spanner in the works.
Unfortunately, every Democrat that was watching this, we were sitting there watching, Joe slipping in the polls to where it was looking like he's never going to recover from this because people blame him for the economy. The economy is up, cost of everything up around 20% in the States, starting to come down now. Cost of gasoline is coming way down in the States, and that's a good thing for everybody. And it's coming down here too, I've noticed. And the problem is Joe was getting blamed for that, and she was sitting there on the sidelines watching this happen. But then he had that disastrous debate a couple of weeks ago, a little over a month ago, that caused him to kind of step away. But this should be really interesting. The analytical woman against the bombastic former president.
I mean, she's kind of revitalized that campaign just in every way, because he did, there was no denying Joe Biden. He presented as old. He's only three years older than Trump, but
he seemed older.
Yeah, Donald Trump doesn't present as old, whereas Biden really was.
I've told this story before, but because we see everything delayed over here because it happened in the middle of the night. My wife and I got up early on. It was a Wednesday morning, and I said, "Oh, let's watch the debate from last night." And I'm watching this analysis, going, "Joe did this and Joe did that, and will this damage his thing?" And I'm thinking, what did he do? This is before I watched the debate, and I started to watch it before she came in the room, and I said, she goes, "Well, how's he doing?" Meaning Joe, and I go, "Wait till you see this."
Oh,
it's so horrible. It was like watching a train wreck, and it was just we know how it played out.
Sure. Where are we in the polls? Because you'll be up to date with the latest sort of reckonings.
Well, right now nationally we're at about 50-50, and there are about. At any given time, there are about 20 polls that are being taken by different organizations, and each one doesn't take one every week, but there is a poll at least every week. And right now, it's 50-50. It's going to come down to a couple of votes in each district in these swing states, the 7 or so swing states. And you could look at certain ones, like she's ahead in Michigan. He's ahead in Pennsylvania by 1%, but the margin of error is like 2 to 3%. So it really is going to come down. And this brings me to something I want to mention to everybody who's listening, who lives in Europe and lives around the world and is American. If you can, get your ballot and vote, because it's estimated that 8% of all the people who vote are living abroad. Wow. And so this could really swing the election for either candidate. So make sure you get your ballot from your state, or registerfromabroad.org and vote. And do your duty and get it done, because otherwise, as I said, you can't complain if you don't cast your vote. No.
5th of November it is the election date.
November 5th.
Yeah,
but the ballots are going out now. I'm a registered voter in the state of South Dakota, and our ballots get mailed out on the, I want to say, 26th of September. So.
You seem to be from a different area every time I hear you on this.
I know.
One time you're in Oregon, and then
I know we did live in Oregon for 21 years, and a couple of years ago we officially became residents of South Dakota.
Okay.
For different reasons, and that's a very red state, but we'll be casting our blue votes somehow. You're very right. You're very astute in picking that up.
I'm in here. As I say, I'm in here every time you're on. But it's good.
On top of that, I was born in New York and lived in California, and I lived all over the country.
Well, that's good though, because you've got a broad, sort of view of
how that's one way to look at it.
Different states and the like.
I'm on the run.
These people think that of me.
There are no police listening to this, are they?
No, it's no one listening to this
Interpol.
time of the afternoon. Were there any other things? Actually, we'll mention this because it's kind of a fun thing to end on. Not necessarily US or political, but Hellmann's, of the mayonnaise fame, launching a fragrance. So, as in something you'd wear that smells like.
Yeah. Who wants to smell like mayonnaise?
Yeah, mayonnaise.
This is a story that came in under the radar, so to speak, and that Hellmann's Mayonnaise is launching the first ever mayonnaise fragrance. Fragrance. So
I do like it, but whether you'd want to.
No, thank you. Oh. No, thank you. Not for me. Maybe for you. But it's called the Parfum de Mayonnaise. Will be available just in time. You can smell good for the football season. They're doing something in conjunction with a player named Will Levis, who is a big fan of mayonnaise. And Hellmann's went to him in 2023 and said, would you like your own fragrance? So it's called Will Levis No. 8. It is, unfortunately, for everybody listening who is not in the States, only available at Walmart, and that will surprise nobody.
Yes, you can.
So it's only $8.
Right,
$8 for perfume.
Okay, if someone smells of mayo, it's just usually they've just been eating a sandwich and you can smell it on their hand.
Just eat a sandwich in an elevator and there you go.
It does remind me, this story I spotted at the last knockings last couple of days when I knew you were coming in, and it's not, we're keeping it balanced. It's not Trump bashing, but it was someone, a former Republican who was on with Jimmy Kimmel live saying, you wouldn't really have Donald Trump smells. Some of it is regular body odor, but the rest is sort of ketchup and makeup. I suppose the makeup is understandable.
Really?
Yeah. There's an odd.
I hadn't heard that,
but no one wants to bring it up in front of him. No one will talk about it.
I had heard and read in some articles that he has an odor.
Yeah.
I've never met him, so I wouldn't know. But I had heard that he's got a little bit of BO going there.
Sure. Yeah.
So now I want to smell him. Now
they don't like to. Yeah, perhaps he's
ketchup and makeup.
If he loses this there's another line for him.
How American.
Yes. And amongst it, does he still do his steaks? I don't know. He's done everything in his lifetime, of course. All right, we're just about out of time. Just a little note as well about the passing of James Earl Jones, 93.
93 years old. He had a great life, and he was, everybody knows he was the voice of Darth Vader, and he was in Field of Dreams, and a lot of other great movies, and truly legendary, a legendary figure in stage and film and television, and he led a whale of a life, and he is a proud University of Michigan grad, as am I. So
yes, you mentioned that.
Yeah.
That's quite something. I don't know if
we are not the same age.
No. So that was just in the last couple of days. I don't know. You wouldn't have seen that episode of Big Bang Theory that he appears in.
No, I didn't. But I heard about it.
I don't know if it's Sheldon dreaming or if it really happens. He ends up going on a whole evening around California with James Earl Jones. He said, "I've got Star Wars residual check burning a hole in my pocket." And I bet he did as well. Imagine how much the sort of syndication and stuff and rights he'd have.
No, he was comfortable, but not only that, but he was dyslexic.
Oh, right.
Too. He stuttered and was dyslexic, so...
Seemed like a good guy who could poke fun at himself as well.
Yeah, he had a good career.
Yeah.
Good run.
Okay, well, that wraps things up for this Tuesday. So Cal back doing this next Tuesday.
All right.
With yourself. We did record this, so I'll get this up on our YouTube channel and go through the Facebook page and website as well. Thanks ever so much, Rich. Have a good week.
Thanks, buddy.